Welcome in, everybody. Happy Tuesday night. It's a Tuesday live stream on the On Texas Football Channel. Aaron Hogan, CJ Vogel, Rod Babers on a beautiful evening in Austin, Texas. There's a ball game going on over at Dish Falk Field. Longhorns lead it 2-0 and have the bases loaded in the second inning against Houston Christian. They have moved to number 2 in the polls. We'll keep you posted on that ball game as the Longhorns are playing some really quality baseball. Actually going to extend their lead to probably 4-0 here, as we'll keep you posted on that. And we'll talk a lot of Longhorn football. Steve Sarkisian had an availability right here in the middle of spring practice, first one in a little bit. We haven't talked to him last week and heard from him last week. Also had a baby in the meantime. L'Oreal Sarkisian gave birth to a baby over the weekend. We'll find out what that name is here coming up because CJ Vogel was in attendance today. Also, Mel Kiper has his final, I believe, the Mel Kiper Mock Draft 4.0 out, which we'll talk about. He's actually moved some of the Longhorns up in his rankings that I've seen today as we get this going. Rod Baber, CJ Vogel, how y'all doing? You guys doing all right?
Doing good. Excited about Sark's media availability, and congrats to Sark. It's great. Now I got a new member of the family, so we got a lot to talk about.
That's right. CJ, how was it today to see Sark? I mean, it's been a little bit and been a lot going on the 40 acres. He kind of backed out while L'Oreal was doing her thing, and national championship for swimming, and Big Schaefer's team with the run to the Final Four, and a new basketball coach. So he kind of stepped aside and let that be the center of attention. But he was back in full force today. How did it go today?
Yeah, it was good. It was good to hear from Steve Sarkisian. And oddly enough, we've talked about the Arch Mania. We've talked about all the hype about Arch Manning, and yet this is probably one of the quieter spring practices that we've had down in Austin in recent years. So it was good to hear from him. Good to hear some updates on some youngsters, as well as his kind of philosophical takes on the portal, as well as getting these young guys some run. So all in all, we got a lot to talk about tonight, but good to hear from the head man.
Yeah. And, I was yesterday, Rod, to hear him talk about how, you can almost tell he revels in the challenge of a whole new team, right? It's a fresh start. What was last year is last year. I know fans kind of get hung up on it's kind of a year-to-year thing for Sark, and you can tell from his coaching staff, it's a whole new deal. This is a whole new start. And as Sark said last year, when they made it to the Final Four, he would talk about how it started back in January. It started back in the spring. You've been a part of this, and you can tell Sark has informed these guys. This is a whole new team. It's a whole new identity. What you did last year doesn't matter. I mean, that's a whole new turn the page and start something brand new.
Yeah, I think it's even easier, or I think that's even more obvious because the quarterback changed, right? It's Arch's team now. So usually I think you can, kind of associate different elements of a team from one year to the next. But because there's been so much turnover because of the successful NFL draft that we think the Longhorns are about to have, 3 Longhorns drafted in the first round potentially. It'll be like the first time since 1980, since the year I was born. So with all those departures, and with Texas now having that NFL pipeline and a new starting quarterback, I do think there is a lot for Sark right now to embrace about, the new identity. We were talking about the new offense. Like it's going to be so many different elements of the offense that you didn't have with Quinn. It just won't look the same. So yeah, I do think Sark likes that, that opportunity to get to know that new team, whatever that new identity is, the new leadership of it. And interesting, this spring, as CJ mentioned, it's about teaching. He reiterated that. That's one of the things he talked about, that this will be about teaching young guys and kind of building up the fundamental foundation for these young guys. And so I think that's interesting too, that he knew, he even was able to kind of foreshadow that one of the issues with this team is that there's just a lot of new faces, coaching staff and players. Let me anticipate, everybody's not going to have the knowledge of how we do things and the standard that we have. We're going to teach it first, and then we'll go into training camp, running full speed.
One of his quotes today, CJ, you were there, was we challenge everybody that what we were a year ago isn't going to be acceptable to who we're going to be this year. That's like, we want to go further. We want to be better. We want to be better in our run game. We want to be better at all levels. We don't want to lose 3 football games. There's a new challenge of keep, ratcheting it up and raising that bar year by year. And that's what you want from a program, to keep, elevating. We'll talk about in here what Sark had to say about Arch Manning and the new offensive line and one of the running backs that is back on the field, but also where he was pretty candid about where they want to maybe look in the portal when the spring opens up coming up. But that thought, CJ, about continuing to raise the bar, and what happened last year was good, but not good enough. We want to be even better.
Yeah, I go back to, what was it, after the Washington game 2 years ago. Sarkisian came out and said he's addicted to winning. He's addicted to the feeling of accomplishing the championship, the ultimate goal for the season. And, for 2 years in a row, you've come up short, right? Basically in the same spot, in the red zone, essentially, with a chance to tie or take the lead late in college football semifinals. So I don't think it'll take much for Sarkisian and his staff to kind of instill that drive, right? You've not accomplished anything. I walked into the Moncrief facility today and I saw the Sugar Bowl trophy sitting out next to Colin Simmons' Sean Alexander Award and Jahdae Barnes' Thorpe. You know how great that's going to be come August 30th? It's not going to mean a thing. So that's being instilled right now. You won the Sugar Bowl. Well, you didn't win it all, and that's what this team is expected to do now, right? That's the expectation when you're, back-to-back semifinalists. You've won 25 games in 2 years. There's a new standard there, and we're going to continue to use the standard as the standard. But right now, with all the talent that's on the roster, including what Texas brought over last year with the number 1 overall recruiting class, the expectation is that you get better and you take those leaps and you win those big games. Thank you, CB. It was the Peach Bowl, not the Sugar Bowl. Point being, you want to win the national championship. So that's where they're driving right now, and that's what Sark's instilling in spring practice right now.
Yeah, and let's hear a little bit from Steve Sarkisian today, and thanks to our friend Corey Mose over at KV24 who posted these, doing the due diligence of editing these, the ABC affiliate here in Austin. But here's one about Arch Manning and taking the reins and being in control now. He is the quarterback. We know Quinn Ewers getting ready for the draft, and now this is Arch's team. Here is what Sark has seen through the winter workouts and now a couple of weeks of spring practice.
Yeah, no, I think Arch is a naturally competitive guy, and I've said this before. He's got a very infectious personality. I think people gravitate to him. And one of the things I see right now is, naturally, he's leading a group of maybe some younger players, especially at the skill spots, at the wideout spot. His confidence, I think, helps them. His understanding, his ability to connect to those guys in between series and talk to them has been helpful. But I also see a competitive spirit affecting the defensive side of the ball. I think they like competing against Arch. I think they know, he's going to talk a little smack to him. He's going to have fun with it. And I think that's bringing out some, kind of some personality in an Anthony Hill or a Manny Muhammad or a Michael Taft, some guys who have played a lot of football. And they're thinking, here comes another spring practice, and when's the next game? And it's not for months down the road, but yet every day is a game. Every day is competitive because they know 16 is going to bring it. And if he gets them, he's going to let them know about it.
Nope. There you go. Thoughts, guys?
Yeah, no, I love it. You got to bring the juice, man. I mean, in practice as a quarterback, you are, yes, of course, you're the quarterback of the offense, but you're the leader of the team at a natural leadership position. You got to recognize that, hey, man, the practice may need a little bit more juice, and whatever the team needs at the time, you got to be able to play that role. So I love that sometimes he's, going after the defense, talking trash to the defense. Trust me, I'm sure the defensive guys, I'm sure they got something to say back to Arch Manning. And after that, it starts, kind of upping the competitive level overall of practice. So I like that. I like to hear that. I mean, like I said, I don't know if Quinn was doing that. I'm sure Quinn had his way of going after the defense. Sims had his way of going after the defense and getting everybody amped up. And we do good on good and the ones on ones. I mean, everybody's got to be at their best. So I love that. I love that he talks a little bit of trash too. He's got some swagger to him, man. I mean, he's got a little bit more swagger than the rest of the Mannings. Not that the Mannings didn't have theirs, and I didn't watch, Archie, so I don't know if Archie had that much swagger, but I don't know. Watch him after this. He got some touchdown celebrations. He's got the handshakes with all the different players. I'm just saying he seems to have that swag. And if he's talking some trash too, then he's got the mouthpiece to add to it.
Well, and I would say this: I love hearing Sark talk about that like guys like Michael Taft, who's going to be a 5th or 6th year player, and Anthony Hill. Is all right, young buck. Okay, young buck, let's go. Let's get this on. That's a good thing, right? That's what you want. You want that. That makes practice fun, CJ. That makes it like keeps it fresh. I mean, you're against one another. You can't have joint practices yet. They're working on that. But a little trash talk, little swag from the offense. That's a good thing.
Yeah, 100%. And it sounds so cliche to say that the offense and a team takes a persona of a quarterback. We talk about it with the head coach, but if your quarterback's the one out there, leading the way, talking smack, making sure that there's no days off and you don't get complacent in these spring practices. Because, Rod, I bet you could tell us they get pretty monotonous, right? You get to practice 7, 8, 9, 10. You're sitting there saying, all right, when are we done? Right? We've been doing this for 4 or 5 weeks now. I'm ready to go hang out in the summer in Austin, get out on the water, hang out by the lake and just enjoy Austin. But I'm kind of done with this, right? But if you got a quarterback out there that's on your ass saying, hey, no, you got a bad day, I'm going to let you know about it. That changes things. And we could certainly talk about the defensive side of the ball because we know Colin Simmons got some of that in him, right? We know Anthony Hill will get in the face of just about any ball carrier after he slams it to the ground and says, yeah, here all day, all 60 minutes I'm here. So there's plenty of that right now. And I think it's so healthy for this team, again, as long as you don't see Colin, you don't see Ant, you don't see any of these defensive guys taking it out on Arch in practice, right? Point being, I think it's really, really good because the more that you continue to see these guys kind of chirp and kind of compete against one another in practice, the better that this competition is going to be. And we talk about the talent level on cornerback. We talk about the incoming wide receivers. You talk about, some of these newcomers on the defensive line versus what Texas is deploying on the offensive line currently. There's some great battles going on. And I can't wait to get into it because he talked plenty about the wide receivers. He said the cornerback was the best looking position on any position on the team right now. So that's only going to help spur those competitions and drive this team again closer to that goal that we mentioned earlier, the national championship.
No question. Rod, we'll get into that monotony of practices, but I would say that Arch Manning also, it was announced today, is now a Viore NIL sponsor. Am I saying that right? Viore. It was Livy Dunn. She does the commercials, now it's Arch.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And can I just say, in honor of that, I'm wearing my Viore pullover here.
Oh, it's clean.
Yeah. Well, it was a gift from my very fashion forward daughter for Christmas. She knew her dad would never splurge on Viore gear, so she got me that for Christmas. So I sported it for the event tonight. Thank you to Arch Manning, the Viore. But it's way above my pay. Like I can't. It's like $100 and whatever to buy a pullover. But hey, man, thank you, daughter. Thank you, Arch. Thank you, Arch, for jumping on that. And who knows what his NIL income will be this year. But to that point, Rod, I mean, not just in practices, but I think the defensive guys and the leaders of the team kind of like that they've got a quarterback that when they get in games, that's going to have some swag to him. That's going to have some. Let's get this thing. Let's go. There's no back down, right? If he's doing that in practice, that's going to carry over to football games, and that's what you want from your leader, your quarterback. That he'll get in the face of people. He'll take it to Ohio State or any opponent they have on their schedule coming. That's a good thing to see this early in the development of this quarterback.
Yes, Sark has said multiple times that the guys gravitate toward him. That he's able to inspire guys. Right, that's part of your job as a quarterback. And I think, honestly, for a quarterback to be talking smack to the defense just shows you that he's his football character because of his pedigree. I just think he's a great natural leader at that position and kind of understands because, the quarterback is the star of the team. And everybody wants time with the quarterback. Everybody wants the quarterback to give them a little bit of time, even guys on the defense. And sometimes I like that, he's challenging the defense. That's his way of his relationship with the defense will be, now I'm going to challenge these guys every day. All right, I'm going to go after. And then when they make a play, I'm going to go over there and congratulate them. But when we're going to go after certain guys. They may call certain plays just to go after certain players, I bet, in practice if it gets that competitive. So I love that he's continuing to kind of increase the competitive level of practice. And he is forming these different relationships with different parts and elements of the team, right? It's not just offense. He's got to be able to lead the defense. They got to believe that when they're down, double digits or 2 scores, that, hey, man, don't worry about it. Arch has got it, right? We still believe. right? He can inspire those guys to keep the faith that no matter what the situation, he can go lead them to a victory. And like I said, I think Quinn had some of that, but I do think ultimately Arch has more of that, and that's that it quality. I think Sark keeps describing it, that it, that thing that you can't really quantify, that's hard to describe, but you know it when you see it. I think there's a lot of that with Arch, that they know the way he carries himself, and he understands the assignment, right? Because he's from a quarterback family. They know how the business of quarterback works. I didn't really know how deep it was till I had a good friend who's a celebrity quarterback, and Chris Sims, who was from a family of quarterbacks that no, it's a certain way that you got to conduct yourself. It's a certain way that you have to lead. It's a certain way that, you have to delegate your time and distribute all these different resources as a quarterback, because everybody's looking to you. It's exhausting. It ain't easy. And until you're close to it, you really don't realize, what it all entails to have that position of leadership over a whole team. But I think Arch obviously is no doubt more suited to it and for it than any quarterback in college football history.
Yeah, well, I mean, he just has seen it. It's almost, Jerry Jones has talked about it with Brian Schottenheimer, the osmosis, doesn't fall far from the tree kind of thing. I don't know what that means, but with Arch, I mean, he's been immersed in it his whole life. And I also like the trash talk, because he's a basketball guy. They won a state title in basketball. That's where you talk trash, is on the pickup court and on the basketball court. Now it's on the football field. Plus, if you remember, his Uncle Peyton was a pretty good trash talker. He was a pretty good get in your face kind of guy. I'm sure he saw that growing up, that Eli was a little more of the subdued guy, but Peyton would get in people's faces for sure when it needed to happen. And that's a good thing. That's alpha leadership from Texas. Before we hear from another piece from Sark, a couple more here talking about the 4 new offensive linemen. What about the one that is back, which Sark says they're getting the best version of? We'll hear that here coming up. But Rod, tell them about Andy Ludicky, one of our great Tuesday sponsors every single week here on the On Texas Football Tuesday live stream.
Yeah, thank you, E, and thank you to Andy Ludicky and his team for being a part of our team here at On Texas Football. If you're looking to diversify, you may be someone like me that has their hands in multiple businesses. Well, Andy and his team can help you diversify by finding you different businesses that will fit your time allotment and your financial goals. If you've been stuck in the corporate rat race with 2 weeks PTO and no control over the money you make or your schedule in general, just give Andy a call and he will take you through a detailed process to help you find a business that will fit your skill sets and your financial goals. Franchise ownership isn't for everyone, but if you have a desire to take control of your financial destiny, just call Andy today. You see the number right there on your screen, 404-973-9901. That's 404-973-9901. Or you can reach out to him at Andy@myperfectfranchise.net. That's Andy@myperfectfranchise.net. Thank you very much to Andy Ludicky for sponsoring our Tuesday night live stream.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate that. Thank you, Rod. All right, let's hear from Sark talking about the offensive line. Then I want, CJ, you mentioned you want to talk about some of the other positions that Sark talked about that he's seeing. But offensive line, obviously big concern with 4 offensive linemen, not just off to the NFL, but likely to get drafted. I mean, Kelvin Banks will be a top 20 pick. Most people think Cam Williams will be a first 2-round or maybe even the 3rd-round pick. Hayden Connor and Jake Majors should be drafted at some point in a couple of weeks, which that's 4 really good players that played a lot of football at Texas. You got like 70, 80 combined starts with those 4 guys. But the one guy returning is DJ Campbell at right guard. He was a high 4.5, 5-star player out of Arlington who's coming into his own. Here's Sark talking about what they're seeing from DJ Campbell, who needs to be a real leader on that offensive line for Kyle Flood.
I think we all have an idea of who Trevor is. We got a pretty good glimpse of that. Not a finished product, but we got a pretty good glimpse of what he looks like. This is probably the best version of DJ Campbell we've gotten, and again, here's 4 years into it. You think a guy, he is who he is. There's growth for everybody. And I think he's taken a really big step from a leadership standpoint, an energy standpoint. This is the best condition he's been in. And then Cole, his experience at center, has been helpful. I've loved the competition with a lot of those other tackles, Brandon Baker, Kojo, Nick Brooks. That's been a really healthy competition there. I love the growth of Nate Kibble right now of where he's at. So again, work in progress, 7 practices in. But again, I think just the steady consistency of growth is what we're looking for. I'm always trying to fight us taking 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards, and trying to nip that in the bud mid practice. And we'll find that right combination. I think that's one thing that, Kyle and I have done over the years is try to find who are the best 5 and then kind of slot them, who's 6, who's 7, who's 8, right? And finding that kind of foundation for who you can count on going into games. And it's a good competition right now.
That's what you want. And I want your thought on that, CJ. Let's talk about, what we've seen gosh, to replace 4 or 5 offensive linemen is a big deal. But when you've got a 4th-year player in DJ Campbell, and you've got a 3rd-year player in Cole Hudson, and you've got Trevor Gooseby who got time, and you got guys who have been on this campus and in that weight room and working with Tory Becton for a couple of years now. You're not rushing these guys on the field. They've had a chance to mature, develop, get stronger, and now they get to go compete and kind of understand what as you just said, the assignment is. That's a healthy sign of yes, 4 out of 5 starters, but you feel pretty good that there's some good players ready to get their opportunity.
Yeah, you have a good place to start, right? The nucleus, if you will, with some guys who have played a lot of football for you. Not necessarily been consistent starters, but play a lot of football. And what we saw from Trevor Gooseby, and we've seen, Cole Hudson, DJ Campbell is a guy that if he's playing his best football, that's a great place to start right there, right? If he's the best version of himself, as Sark is saying right now, then he can start being a leader on that offensive line. That's probably what you're missing most on that offensive line right now is probably that leadership, because more so than any position, the cohesion, the continuity, the communication on the offensive line, that's got to be top notch, right? That's something that they have to excel at, and they have to do it as a hive mind, right? As a group. And right now, they had that the last 3 years. Right now, they don't really have that because they don't even know who their best guys are. So once they do figure out, all right, now these are our best 5 to 7 guys, 5 to 8 guys, then you got to figure out. That's why Sark was talking about the combination of them, right? Which of them work the best together? Is there a better group when it comes to zone blocking? Is there a better group when it comes to running downhill on teams? Is there a better pass blocking unit that we put together, a better pass blocking 5? Than a better run blocking 5, or do we just want the best, all around 5 players and try to get them on the field any way possible with a lot of your cross training? So I think there's still a lot that's a good place to start, but I still think there's a long way to go figuring out the O-line and the different elements of it. It's going to be interesting.
No question. And when you start with a team like Ohio State, August the 30th, you'll get a baptism pretty quick on because you know what kind of talent they're going to bring to the table. CJ, who do you think? Your thoughts on what you heard from Sark today? DJ Campbell, can he be that veteran leader? Cole Hudson, for sure. Jake Majors was such a leader for 4 years at Texas in the middle. But any thought on what Sark said, and then who may emerge? Is to hear him mention Nick Brooks, a true freshman, in that battle for right tackle is interesting. Yeah. I think those two positions shake out: left guard, right tackle.
Yeah, Rod, I thought what you said was pretty interesting, right? You got to find guys that are 6, 7, and 8, and Sarkisian and Flood right now feel like they have 6, 7, and 8, and you might be able to swap those guys in to the starting 5, regardless of position or where they might be best fit. But to hear as often as we have about an Andre Kojo at right tackle, a Nate Kibble at both guard positions, a Daniel Cruz at center, I don't know if that trumps at all what we've heard about Nick Brooks at left tackle and how quickly he's come along as an early enrollee at a guy who, we've talked about how big he is, around 365 pounds or so. It's a big human, and he kind of encapsulates, exactly what Cam Williams was whenever he came into college, just a little bit further along. And if that's the case, you got a heck of a prospect, right? So he's going to be a left tackle. He's gotten time at right tackle as well, according to Sarkisian today. So that battle with Brandon Baker right now is Andre Kojo, who's made things pretty close, and now an early enrollee, Nick Brooks. So, yeah, you got plenty of options right now, all about finding the 5 best, whether that can be a Kibble, whether that can be a Daniel Cruz on the interior at center. We'll have to wait and see. We're about halfway, right? Practice 7 is typically your halftime of spring practice. Texas should have a scrimmage this Saturday. We'll talk about some of the recruits coming to that this weekend. But all in all, to have as many options as Texas has right now on the offensive line, it shouldn't be too hard to find which guys really stand out amongst the rest and find ways to move defensive linemen, reach the second level, and create run lanes while maintaining a clean pocket for your franchise quarterback. But I really like what I heard from Sarkisian today. And again, I think despite not having the experience as previous years, I think you're deeper right now. Now it's going to be about who are your offensive line leaders, right? Because he mentioned DJ, and he also mentioned DJ's in the best conditioning shape of his career at Texas. That's huge, right? That's really big for DJ Campbell. But who's going to be your vocal guy? Who's going to be your Jake Majors? Who's going to be, a guy that like a Kelvin Banks or a Hayden Connor was just so steadfast and doing the right thing all the time on the offensive line? Do you have that guy right now? I would say Cole Hudson is a vocal guy. I wouldn't say that about a NATO. I wouldn't say that about a DJ, but two guys who in year 4 can go out there and prove it by doing it, right? Leading by example kind of sense by the two of them. But don't sleep on Trevor Gooseby as a guy who's got some fire under him whenever he plays some football as a vocal guy.
Yeah, no, Gooseby's got a great personality. Got a chance to interview Trevor Gooseby. I'm with you on that. Because especially once he gets the skins on the wall, it's hard to, assert yourself as a leader. Some guys are just, because in football, to me, has always been, I think that's the case everywhere. You can't be a guy, if you ain't playing and playing well, it's hard to say you're a leader. Right? It's hard to be a leader. You have to play well to be a leader. Because leadership, you got to be confrontational.
Yeah.
And I have to hold others accountable. And how am I hold you accountable if I'm not taking care of business, if I'm not playing a certain standard?
Rod, how hard is it to hold guys accountable if you've not yet done it?
Exactly.
It's a special kind of leader and competitor, right?
Yep, exactly. And that's another thing. That's why I think of Trevor Gooseby, he's right there because he's got those examples where he played at such a high level and did play to that standard. And I think he's going to get it. If he gets a little bit more consistency with that first part of the year, he's easily can be one of those guys. I mean, he's got the personality for it. There's no question. And he's got the drive. He's got the drive. He's one of those guys. He's got an appetite for excellence. It's the best way I could put it.
Wow, nice. Well, and CJ, am I right about this? That Sean Miller and the Texas basketball staff are recruiting his brother?
Yeah. They actually just extended the offer. I believe yesterday they re-offered him. One of the top playmakers in the state of Texas again, Adam Melissa. Talk about an athletic family, right? You got one son that's left tackle, but kind of the anchor of the Texas offensive line. Another one who's got plenty of offers in college basketball. Again, recruited by Texas, and now Sean Miller and company are saying, "Hey, we want you to be a Texas Longhorn." So he's going to take his own recruitment. I talked a little bit with Jerry Hamilton earlier today. He's going to have his own recruitment. Texas has to go out and win that recruitment for him. But that's a great sign that Texas will have some really talented in-state prospects year 1 for Sean Miller to go and kind of build a foundation for years 2, 3, 4, 5 to come.
Yeah, get used to the name Gooseby. The Goosebees on the 40 acres potentially. We have the Shipleys, and then we got the Goosebees, and here we go. So I like it. All right, CJ, we'll get into some of the portal discussion and a running back that's kind of shining right now for Steve Sarkisian. Also a new baby for Steve Sarkisian was born over the weekend. He has announced what the name is. We'll let you hear that here coming up. But CJ, what other, you mentioned did he talk about the corner position, and what else stood out to you as far as positional? Because this, for the first 7 practices, it's been very instructional, but there's been some competitive sessions. What else stood out to you today from Sark about position groups?
Yeah, speaking on cornerback, we'll start there. Obviously, Manny Muhammad is going to be CB1, and I know some folks might be a little concerned about the back end of the year. Listen, I'm not at all. That happens to cornerbacks, right? You get beat sometimes, but when you're now the guy, you live up, you step up. Your game takes a different level, especially for a third-year guy with as much starting experience and playing experience as Muhammad. Also opposite of him, there's a tight competition going on, whether it be Kobe Black or Jalen Gilbo at that spot other than him. But Sarkisian also mentioned a few other names. He said, look, Warren Robinson's had, quote, an excellent spring. And you don't hear Sark, use the word excellent all too often. So that's a great sign there. He also mentioned Cade Phillips as another piece of the puzzle, one of the early enrollees who, 5-star guy coming out of high school. Rod, we've watched the tape. That's the type of kid that is built to play cornerback, one of those prototypical builds on the outside. But he also mentioned Wardell Mack, at the nickel spot.
Okay.
And that's interesting, right? Because I don't think he was the expected starter for the spring at nickel. But for Jelani McDonald to stay back at safety, to cross-train at times, not to be thrown into the fire too quickly at the nickel spot, hey, that's great for Wardell Mack. And again, he was running first team today with the nickel spot. It's also where Niblett is. Ryan Niblett. Texas is utilizing Ryan Niblett right now in the slot at the star position. That's the slot cornerback spot for folks who don't know that terminology. But speedy guy, Rod. We talked about it, Aaron. This is a guy with all the athletic tools. Now it's about finding a way onto the field. He did so last year in 3-back sets. He was kind of that second movement guy that they would motion across the offense in the pony package. So for Niblett, if he can carry over some physicality, if he can be a guy that Texas utilizes often as a gunner as well, that's how he kind of begins to earn the trust of that Texas coaching staff. RWSC, the comment, JJR, Jordan Johnson-Rebel, has been getting a little bit of looks over at nickel as well. More than not, he's been stuck at safety where he's been running second team right now behind Michael Taft and Jelani McDonald. So a lot going on in that corner room.
No, I like the idea, though, of just experimenting with guys at nickel right now because you got two guys who can play it. You got Gilbo, you got Jelani McDonald. Both of those guys can play nickel. And whether it's big nickel or coverage nickel, and you're really deep at safety. So I love the idea of experimenting there. See if you got another guy that can end up playing nickel for you and then build the depth there. And then potentially you could have multiple starters or guys who could start at different positions. I think that's what they want. So I like the idea of experimenting there because Jelani McDonald can play nickel and so can Jalen Gilbo. But both those guys can play nickel. Cross-training right now is going to be, especially with Coach Aquina there, that's going to become more of a theme in the secondary. And I'm sure it already was a theme, of course, Janae Barron, prime example of it. But it was something that Coach Aquina prided himself on. I think it's a direction. I just think cross-training is something the defense is going to start doing more of at every level. Defensive line, linebacker. Hell, as he even going to the Trey Moore question, what did he say about Trey Moore, CJ? What did he say?
He's at 3 positions, Rod, and it's going to change. I loved what he said. We talked about it earlier today with Jeff after the media availability. He said the I word. It's going to change up some of those identification keys for opposing offensive lines because they're so used to targeting number 8, saying, okay, find where Trey Moore is and make sure that we got a body or 2 to make sure he doesn't get to the quarterback. But you start moving him around that offensive or that defensive front 7, and you still got Colin Simmons over on one side, another edge rusher, plus an Anthony Hill. Well, good luck, right? It's going to be a handful.
I love it. I think that's what they want to do more of, guys. I think they're going to start because then it's hard to identify as a quarterback who's playing what. You get a nickel that can play safety. You can go from 3 high back down the nickel and just keep shifting those looks in the back end. And you get a linebacker that can also, kind of roll up and play on that edge as well. And then you're just shifting the front constantly. So I think that's kind of I think that's the next step for the defense. I think that's something that they'll get to ideally this season and next season. They'll master it in 2 seasons, but I think they'll start to implement it more now.
Yeah, just that amoeba defense, Rod, where it's like we're not sure. Mm-hmm. And then we talked last week on a Tuesday about why are they recruiting the kid David Bailey from Stanford, right? I mean, and we went through the body type, 6'4", 240, 6'4", 240. I mean, all these guys that are somewhat interchangeable that can, if Trey Moore's sliding over to the Mike linebacker, sometimes he's going to play run, but linebacker fill the gap and you'll play the run, but sometimes he's going to be coming with a middle blitz and it just makes it very, very difficult to understand what Texas is trying to do on the defensive side of the ball. And that's kind of been Pete Kwiatkowski's vision from the beginning. Let's see how we can build this thing to make it as confusing as possible on defenses, be as you just said, Rod, unidentifiable as possible to confuse the quarterbacks, and that's really the goal. big picture to have those interchangeable parts and cross train all those guys. All right, real quick, let me tell you and let you hear about our friends at Advanced Pain Care. If you guys are in pain out there, if you're feeling it, you're putting it off, you're not getting in there. Here it's the spring, best weather of the year. Get in and see our friends at Advanced Pain Care. Let's hear about them.
Pros know the pain stops here.
Physical therapy helps me as an athlete then and now. And do I still need therapy? Yes. Advanced Pain Care helps with that.
Injuries will stack up. They'll add up. You can't let those injuries get you down, and Advanced Pain Care has been very helpful for me.
We can help with whatever's got you down, from nerve damage to our spinal cord stimulator. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Same-day appointments available.
Advanced Pain Care. The pain stops here.
All right, there you go, guys. Get in there. Take care of it. Inevitable, but preventable. I like that a lot. That's a good little slogan right there. But all right, so guys, here is what Sark said today about the portal. Actually, before we do that, let's introduce the newest Sarkeesian, because there is a new Sarkeesian. Matthew, I sent you the newest Sarkeesian who was born over the weekend. It was announced on Instagram by L'Oreal, Sark's wife, that they have given birth. And here is the name: a baby boy, and Amayas. So here Sark gave us a pronunciation guide on how to pronounce his new baby's name.
Amias. Amias. Amaya with an S. Amias. Amays.
Amias. There you
I love
go.
when you said Amaya with an S. I was like, that's what, when him and L'Oreal were talking about it, or when she told him that was the name, he was like, what? Amaya with an S. Like, okay, all right, I got it. Yeah, Amaya with an S.
So it's
Amias.
a boy named Amias. I like it.
I like it.
Amias with an S.
I've
Amaya with an
I've
S.
never even heard of an Amias before, so it's truly a unique name. That's what you're always trying to find something unique that's unique. There you go.
That's
Amaya.
unique. And that's Sark's fourth child or fifth. Am I right about that? Fifth? Fourth?
Don't have me lie to you.
Three with his first wife, and now that's the first with L'Oreal.
Yeah, that's L'Oreal.
That's Amias. So welcome to the world of Amias, and Amias Sarkeesian is with us now. But here's what Sark said about the transfer portal today. Because that's going to open in the spring after the fan day and all that coming up at the end of April. He said. Wide receiver, defensive line, and tight end. Tight end, not a surprise at all. D-line and wide receiver. But he said, I don't want to take a guy just for a number. Can you help that room play at an even higher level? Walk us through that, CJ. Wide receiver, thoughts there on depth, D-line, and then tight end, not a surprise at all.
Yeah, I would say it's not really a surprise at wide receiver either. Again, I know Texas has a lot of talent. We've talked about those 4 incoming freshmen that have really turned a lot of heads, and 3 of them so far, Sarkeesian mentioned, have run a lot with the first team, right? He said, really, we got 4 guys that are kind of cycling in with that first unit. It's Parker Livingstone, who oddly enough is the elder statesman in that room, and then Jamie French, Khalid Lockett, and Dalen McCutcheon. And so that leaves you with that second unit, Michael Terry, Aaron Butler, and a Khalid Lockett back and forth, kind of cross-training with that first, second team. So you don't have a lot of pieces right now. You don't have a lot of bodies. And with Ryan Wingo and DeAndre Moore sidelined for the spring, it kind of gives you an idea of what could this room look like should they miss time in the fall, which, again, talented, but very raw, very inexperienced, no production really at all, right? That'll come. But Sarkeesian did mention, hey, we got to find the right guy. We got to find the right fit culturally, physically. We got to make sure that this is essentially a guy that should we go at him out of the portal. He fits our locker room, but also elevates our room, takes it to a level that we wouldn't have reached otherwise without him. And Texas has done just that. You look at wide receiver additions over the past few years. Oh, look, Texas doesn't reach where they reached with Adonai Mitchell, right? They don't get to that spot without him. Matthew Golden, Silas Bolden, Isaiah Bond, all 3 last year. I'm not saying Texas is going to go out and get 3 guys from the portal, but they certainly need at least one guy who's been there and caught a pass outside of DeAndre Moore and Ryan Wingo. So tight end was also a position he mentioned. Fortunately, and I say fortunately, it's not, but Jordan Washington out for the spring. That gives you some time with Spencer Shannon for the first time in his career as the number 1 tight end. So at least then you're getting him further along in his development, getting him to see some plays, some reps that he otherwise would not have seen. And also Ridge Barker, Amari Winston, 2 guys who very new, very raw to college football. They're getting some run, and defensive line, which we'll get into a bit later. But all in all, portal work is going to be done on the offense side of the ball.
Yep. I agree with that. Especially wide receiver. You're just too good at developing transfer portal wide receivers. I've always said it's the deepest position in football. Look at the track record you got right now. A transfer portal wide receivers, man. It's just too good. A.D. Mitchell, Matthew Golden now, and Isaiah Bond. I mean, hell, even I don't even know the way. Remember the way Xavier Worthy came was even a weird way. Didn't he have signed his letter of intent to go to Michigan and then like asked out of it or something? You should. So I agree with CJ. You should always bring in a transfer portal wide receiver. This year, you should do it too, just because you've already had injuries there. Knocking on wood. All right, and maybe just to safeguard yourself, you should, because in Sark's system, you can maximize those guys pretty, 1 year. You don't have to develop in your system. And Sark's pretty good at picking the guys that are compatible with his system. So I agree with that. And then tight end, there's no doubt. I mean, tight end, out of all the positions right now in the 40 acres, I mean, that's the least experienced. And I think right now it's probably the toughest to project, right, how that's going to play out throughout the season, just because there's just nothing that we haven't seen it. We haven't seen any of those guys. None of those guys have had time to prove it. So I would say, just to give yourself a contingency plan or backup plan there, go get an experienced tight end, somebody who's played tight end, inline tight end at a high level, and also been able to move around just a little bit. And I think that'll at least help that room. And then D tackle, that's I agree with CJ on that too. We can get into it on defense, but I think they're always going to be looking for it until they haven't really found a way like to get the D tackle position. Like they have the O line, the O line, where they have it constructed now. Like, they've been able to retain a lot of guys, and now it seems like, it's embarrassment of riches there. D tackle is just a tough position to be able to build like that in the transfer portal era and the NIL era. But they need a long-term strategy and a short-term strategy for D tackle. It seems like every year now. And I think that maybe that's just the nature of the beast that in this day and age could be.
Well, and I got to think back to the beginning of this conversation here on the On Texas Football Tuesday night live stream, that having Arch Manning at quarterback and him being the celebrity quarterback he's going to be, that has to help if there is a wide receiver out there that may be thinking, hey, man, I'd like to catch some passes from Arch Manning. That's because, you just said it, Rod, the resume, A.D. Mitchell from, catching big touchdown passes and big gains, but wasn't seen as a high draft pick, goes top 50 in the NFL draft. Matthew Golden comes in from Houston. He's going to be a top 15 or 20 draft pick in the NFL. Now it's Arch Manning and his quarterback. You got to be thinking there's some receivers out there that are somewhere thinking, that might be a good opportunity for me to showcase my skill set, and tight end too, potentially. I mean, you just know that every play that Texas runs this year is going to be under a microscope with Arch Manning at quarterback. That's a good thing if you become his one of his go-to targets and catch big passes. That has to be something. If you're hearing Sark say it in April, we're looking for receivers, we're looking for tight ends. The word is out. Maybe I want to go to Texas.
Good point.
Sounds kind of like a good. Maybe there's a spot there. I'd be interested. All right, let me tell you about Mark Saunders and our great team over at Allstate. Are you in good hands? Is the question. If you're not in good hands, you need to call him and his team. But also just ask yourself and make sure: are you in good hands with all of your stuff, not just a couple of your things, but your home has to be taken care of. But man, you're talking about homes and cars and boats potentially for you folks out there. Motorcycles, RVs, ATVs is everything. As you go to sleep tonight in a good place, under the right umbrella and the right protection plan, that's what Allstate is all about. You want to be in good hands, as they say. And with Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders, you will be. He's the only insurance agent you'll need. Everything from that home to your car, maybe an extra home, you got a lake house, you got other homes, or a hunting lodge or whatnot. It doesn't matter. You got to have it all under the umbrella. If you're looking for someone local to the Austin and Round Rock area, give him a call tomorrow. Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders at 218-8571. That's 512-218-8571. And ask yourself again, are you in good hands? More than 35 years of experience, you absolutely will be, with the Texas alum Mark Saunders. And you talk some Longhorn football, Longhorn basketball, Longhorn baseball. Longhorns, by the way, up right now 9-2 over at Dish Falk Field as they lead the Houston Christian squad. They were they were Houston Baptist for a while, and now they're Houston Christian out of the Houston area. So it's 9-2. Texas is kind of running up on them right now over at Dish Falk Field with that series at Kentucky coming up this weekend. There was news also today from Texas basketball. Trey Johnson made it official. He is headed to the NBA. Trey Johnson, not surprising, one and done, 19.9 points per game. Led the SEC in scoring, and he's off to the NBA. Guys, no surprise there, but Sean Miller building this roster. But you wish the best for Trey Johnson. He was fun to watch for 30 games or so. I mean, he's one of those. I don't know if he's Kevin Durant, but he was a hell of a player, and he's going to be, he was as a true freshman, CJ, the number one option every night. Got the best defender every night, and still led the SEC in scoring. That's pretty good.
Yeah, 100%. He was fun, man, and when you don't have a team that's going to be overly competitive, you want to have a fun player, and Trey Johnson was just that, right? I don't want to say he was the Bugatti under the Shaq house, but some nights he was. Some nights he was. I mean, you look at that game in Fayetteville when he had 38 or 39, really kept that team in games single-handedly at times. And you saw some of the ugly, right? Some of the areas where he needs to step up, specifically towards the final 4 minutes against Xavier, where it just felt like ISO and ISO and ISO and ISO. Not a lot of ball movement, not a lot of movement off the ball. Fun player. He's going to be a lottery pick, probably top 5, top 7, top 8 in that range. And he's going to be a guy that represents Texas. And I think that's really cool. And that's one of those things I'm hoping that we continue to see under Sean Miller and probably even more so, his guys having great careers at Texas, leaving some sort of legacy, hopefully with some more wins, obviously. But point being, going off to the NBA. So on a Tuesday or Thursday night, when you're sitting around bored at home, you can say, oh, that guy's scoring 25 right now, like Kai Jones on the Mavs, right? He's turning it around. That makes the NBA and the professional side of it so much fun.
Yep, and no question about it. I know you talked to Jerry earlier today. What do you guys think about the current Sean Miller roster build? We'll get back to the football here in a second, but I think there's 10 guys under scholarship. The kid from Florida Atlantic, the 7-footer, Lithuanian, was a big get. Also Cam Heide coming in from Purdue, Dalen Swain coming in from Xavier, Kendall Weaver returning, Tremont Mark and Jordan Pope. Still feels like they need some scoring, CJ, and maybe still feels like they need point guard, unless Tremont Mark's going to be your go-to point guard all season long. Still some work to do, but 10 guys in place on the first roster for Sean Miller. Also, I like the fact that, like the kid from Florida Atlantic and Heide and Swain, these guys can be here for a couple of years and kind of be something that aren't they one and done, and you got to start over next year.
Yeah, I really like it. And, I know Jerry's has gone off about the roster construction. He's got his side of things. I really like the sense that you're building a foundation for year 1 and year 2. If you need to go out next year and find a guy who thinks, that staff thinks can elevate the program into a Final Four, a Elite 8, a Sweet 16 level run, that's when you spend all your money. Right now, you got to make sure that this thing doesn't fall flat on its face before the plane can ever take off the runway, right? So I really like what Texas has done so far. And to find a 7-foot big in the portal, rare thing to do. To find a 7-foot big who has 2 years of college ball still remaining and is coming off a freshman of the year in the American Athletic Conference, even more hard to do. So really, really excited for Matas Volkititis. Again, we'll see what level of scoring he brings to this team. All in all I know is that rim protection defensively and some of the defensive rebounding that we saw years past, it can't be worse than what it was last year. So to get a 7-footer, to get 5 guys over 6'8" on the roster, a few of them with pretty solid 3-point strokes, that's going to be tough to defend, and it's going to leave Texas plenty of options to find ways to go small, to go quick. When they need to go big, they have plenty of bodies. I'm excited for it. And all in all, what are the next steps for Tremont Mark and Jordan Pope? With Sean Miller, a guy who's been very good at finding elite guard play from his teams at Arizona and Xavier, let's see what developmental skills and traits they find over the next 8 months or so. Because again, it was a step in the right direction when Tremont Mark took over ball handling duties for the Texas Longhorns late this year. Was it enough? Evidently not. Point being, there were some bright spots. Hopefully that'll be taken to the next step with Sean Miller.
Yeah, I mean, one thing, we were down in San Antonio with the radio station and covering the Final Four, and we talked to Brad Underwood, the coach at Illinois. I thought it was interesting. He said, the two linchpins for our roster build are positional height and shooting.
Yep.
But when we're building our roster, it's positional height. We want to be tall, and we want to be able to shoot the basketball at all levels. And that's, that you look at Texas. Do they have that yet? Tremont Mark, not a great shooter. Kendall Weaver's got to come along. Dalen Swain's got to get better shooting the basketball. That would be my one concern. Do they shoot the ball well enough? But at the same time, you got to develop that. And, that's we'll see. It's you just saw Florida, crush Houston's dreams, winning the national title last night. The first roster build for Sean Miller. Back to the football side of things here on the On Texas Football Tuesday live stream. Let's hear one more from Steve Sarkisian, the new proud papa, talking about a young pup at running back, because we know that C.J. Baxter's still out from his knee injury. We know Trey Wisner has changed his number to 26, but there's a young guy in Christian Clark, along with Jared Gibson. Christian Clark's already back from that Achilles that he suffered back in spring practice or fall practice of last year. And here's Sark, what he's seeing from Christian Clark so far in the spring practices.
I'll start with Christian. I'm super impressed. He anytime you have a significant injury like that and you miss an entire season, you're always kind of monitoring what are they going to look like when they really start to come back. And I could feel it in winter workouts. I mean, he was running away where it was like, this man, I don't know what ahead of schedule is anymore. Science is pretty incredible. And as practice has started, he looks in tremendous shape. He's right back to having great balance and body control, which is something that we identified in the recruiting process. He's got really good, change of direction, ability to get to top end speed quickly. So we're very pleased with where he's at.
All right, there you go. Christian Clark out of Arizona, part of that freshman class 2 years, last year with Jared Gibson and Christian Clark. How about that, Rod? It's September was an Achilles, and he's already back.
That's phenomenal. If he's already back and already showing, the contact balance and some of the bursts that Sark was talking about, that running back room, if they keep the guys healthy, I mean, it has a chance to be a really special room because they have such a diverse, variety of different skill sets in there with C.J. Baxter and Jerry Gibson and Trey Wisner. I mean, there's no doubt they got a ton of talented depth in that room. So, knocking on wood, though, if that group stays healthy, we were just talking about the concerns at tight end. They're looking for potential tight ends in the transfer portal. They don't return any receptions. Actually, I take that back. CJ informed us Malik Agbo has a reception. So other than him, CJ threw that little stat out there. Other than him, they don't have any receptions returning at tight end. Could the running back position, if everything works out, CJ Baxter comes back around and he's healthy, and the rest of the guys continue to get better and develop, could you start upping your pony package reps, which everybody knows I love me some pony package. When you had Bijan and Rojo, that's the most pony package you used. I mean, you were in double digit usage of your pony package. Why not, right? It's Rojo and Bijan. Could you get back to liking that personnel grouping that much where you could up the usage of it to try to supplement for the lack of 12 personnel? Because I don't know if they'll play as much 12 personnel this year. Right now I'm having a hard time seeing them playing 35% 12 personnel. I just don't know if they'll play that much. Last year they were like at 38% or something like that. They were really high last year. So I don't know if I'll see them play that much 12 personnel again. And maybe pony package depth at the running back position can help supplement that. Pony package is two tailbacks on the field at one time. So it could be 21 personnel, two backs, one tight end. It could be 20 personnel, two backs, no tight ends with 3 wide receivers. Pony package, just 2 running backs, 2 tailbacks on the field at one time.
Yeah, not an H-back or a fullback or one of those, but 2 running backs like a Christian Clark and C.J. Baxter. And we talked about that last year, C.J. Rod talked about it extensively last summer, the idea of really featuring the pony package with C.J. Baxter and either Jared Gibson or Christian Clark or Trey Wisner. And obviously the injuries at the running back room really kind of crippled that whole idea and that whole concept as the season went on, and they just had to adjust and come up with new ways to do it. But if that running back room is full and Christian Clark is healthy and CJ Baxter is healthy and Jarrett Gibson is a year better and more, ready to take on that a power running back role, that's a deep room. Where there's some thin rooms, that's a deep room.
Yeah, it is. And it's almost a complete difference from a year ago, right? Especially going into the season. You only had, 3 guys that you were really comfortable with. You added Velton Gardner because you desperately needed another body in that room, and body didn't last a whole very long. And so that helped move Ryan Niblett over to running back, and we saw how the season panned out. But now you have 6 guys, or at least they're expecting 6 guys. You got 5 on the field right now, plus the return of CJ Baxter at some point this summer, fall camp, whenever it might be. Point being, you got plenty of bodies right now. Now you got to keep them healthy. I know. But you're in pretty good shape when it comes to personnel in the room. And Roger, I'll go ahead and answer your question here. So let's go from the top. You got Trey Wisner, and then you got Christian Clark. You got Jarrett Gibson, the 2 of them splitting some second-team run. Jarrett Gibson, of course, is getting some time with the first team as well. Christian Clark, they're still easing him in. Texas, again, we're expecting a scrimmage of some sort this Saturday. Texas has kept Christian Clark not shelved completely, but enough to say, okay, we're going to ease you in all the way. You just had an Achilles tear. You're back. That's great. You're doing tremendous, but we're not going to rush it, right? We're going to make sure that you see game 1 at Ohio State. We're going to make sure that you see week 2, where he didn't last year. So Trey Wisner at the top, they're going to limit him as well. We know what Trey Wisner can do. And then Jarrett Gibson, it's time for him to take that next step. It's time for him to show that, hey, this is a guy that deserves a lot of carries, deserves the trust of the staff, and is going to be your short yardage guy. Because behind him, Christian Clark, we've talked about his one-cut ability. Sark talked about it a little bit today. And below them, running with the third unit, is the 2 freshmen, the 2 early enrollee, James Simon and Ricky Stewart. I've heard great things about James Simon. I think he's going to be a big-time player at Texas. I think that was a really underrated snag. And, when he gets his body right, you got 2 bruising backs with Jarrett Gibson and James Simon that I think are really going to be difficult for Texas to not find the end zone and first downs on short yardage situations. Rod, we go back to Sarkisian kind of just leaning on Roschon and Bijan just to figure it out. Just hand it to them and let them get the yards. I think you're going to eventually have that same level of confidence with a Simon and with a Jarrett Gibson. And of course, I don't want to forget Ricky Stewart. Sarkisian said today that Stewart might have been a little bit of a slower build for him, getting to campus. I think his head was spinning a little bit. But this was a guy, again, I think he had 5,000 career rushing yards at Tyler Chapel Hill. Kid can run the football. So once he knows what to do, the game slows down for him in that sense, and you see the athletic, instinctual ability take over at the running back position. So all in all, you got plenty of bodies. You got plenty of guys and weapons with unique skill sets to fill whatever role you need out of your running backs. It's just keeping them healthy for the fall.
Hey, Rod, let me ask you this, because we had the question about the Pony package, and you talk about 12 personnel, which is 2 tight ends on the field. Pony would be either 1 or no tight ends on the field. Do you think with the depth that offensive line that we talked about earlier, do you think with the new running backs coach Chad Scott, Neil Brown coming over from West Virginia now as an analyst, and they want to get kind of that power gap scheme, do you think maybe the 6-0 line package comes back at some level for Texas, big picture, to be able to run the ball in the between the hashes like Sark wants to do?
Yeah, that's interesting, because in my study of the 6-0 line package they didn't use it last season at all. From 2022 to 2023, they're actually the rushing yardage actually dropped a little bit. And I think Sark initially wanted to use it as a bully ball package, try to play bully ball. Why not, right? You got an extra offensive lineman and the big humans. But it didn't work as well. Why? Because as we know, Texas has kind of struggled in short yardage, right? That's just not really the identity of Sark's offense. Struggled in short yardage, struggled in the red zone and on the goal line, right? And now part of that is because they don't have enough of a power identity in the run game. And even when they brought in his 6th offensive lineman guys, they still weren't able to run the football. What I found was your passing game, though, your yards per attempt, you were averaging damn near 12 yards per attempt in your 6-0 line package. in 2023. So what he found was that it insulated pass protection better than it allowed him to impose his will in the run game. And so what it did, it basically it gave them a little bit more time to take deep shots because you had an extra offensive line pass protecting. And so Sark would almost just use it as, it wouldn't be, he wouldn't use it basically to always take shots. But for the most part, most of those, the play action pass, vertical passes that he threw downfield, they were 15 yards or more. Sometimes it was, a deep crossing route. Sometimes it was that deep curl they like to run downfield, and I almost use it as a max protection. And so it did not improve the run game like I thought. I thought it would improve the run game too. It didn't. Much like all their jumbo packages or any short yards, they still struggled to run downhill and play bully ball with the sixth offensive lineman. But they were fantastic at challenging defenses vertically because Quinn had more time. And you were able to insulate him from pressure. And when you did that, Quinn could deliver the football.
Well, and defense will go heavy, right? I mean, they're going to match up and go heavy.
Yeah.
You've got an opportunity to create a one-on-one situation on the outside. They're thinking run, you run play action and push the ball down the field with that max protect, as you say, with the six offensive linemen and potentially, running back picking up blitzes or the extra pass rusher, and the ball can get down the field. And Arch Manning obviously brings some of that element as well. All right, real quick, guys, and I want, Rod, before we get to this Mel Kiper mock draft, and then we'll wrap things up on a Tuesday night. If there are super chats, we'll take them. Want to hear from you and ask your questions and answer them, of course. But get to this Mel Kiper mock draft 4.0 real fast. But, Rod, tell them one more time about Andy Ludicky here as we hit the 1 hour mark of our Tuesday night live stream.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. And thank you to Andy Ludicky and his team for being a part of our team here at On Texas Football. If you're looking to diversify, you may be someone like myself that has their hands in different businesses. Well, Andy can help you diversify by finding you different businesses that will fit your time allotment and your financial goals. If you are looking for, a way to expand your financial portfolio, maybe you're stuck in the corporate rat race with 2 weeks PTO and no control over the money you make or your schedule in general, call Andy and he'll take you through a detailed process to help you find a business that will fit your skill sets and your financial goals. Franchise ownership isn't for everyone, but if you have a desire to take control of your financial destiny, give Andy a call today at 404-973-9901. That's 404-973-9901, or reach out to him at andy@myperfectfranchise.net. That's andy@myperfectfranchise.net. So thank you very much to Andy Ludicky and his team for being a part of our team here at On Texas Football.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate that. All right, Mel Kiper's mock draft is out. I know they'll talk about it more tomorrow on Coffee and Football and throughout the day. But 4.0, and I think this is the last one he'll put out before the draft, which is 2 weeks from Thursday. I believe that's true. But the latest mock draft from Mel Kiper has the 3 Longhorns going in the first 18 picks of the draft. He's got Miami with the 13th pick taking Jahdae Barron, cornerback out of Texas. He has Arizona. Pick 16, taking Matthew Golden, wide receiver. How about that? They go Marvin Harrison Jr. last year, Matthew Golden this year, Kyler Murray, Terry McBride at tight end. That's interesting. And Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle, Texas to Seattle at pick 18, which is interesting. But 13, 16, and 18 guys, which is kind of about the consensus of where we are here with those 3 players. They're going to be off the board in the first 20 picks. We'll get to the second round here coming up, but any thoughts on that? Jahdae Barron would love Miami. Come on now. South Beach, living life down there, bringing his ball to that defense and bringing immediate impact to that side of the ball. CJ, you're a Cowboys fan. I'd be hard-pressed with the Cowboys. He's got the Cowboys taking Omarion Hampton, running back, North Carolina. If you pass on Kelvin Banks, Jahdae Barron at premium positions, Matthew Golden at 12, to take a running back, I would be surprised by that. But Cowboys could take any one of those Longhorns, and I think it would be a great pick for them. But Omarion Hampton to the Cowboys, but then the Longhorns come off the board the next 5 picks after the Cowboys go. Thoughts?
Yeah, I would love the Cowboys to take Matthew Golden as well. I would love them if they took Calvin Banks, but they took Tyler Guyton 2 years ago out of Oklahoma. He's been kind of a train wreck, so I don't know. Cowboys are cooked. It doesn't matter. But anyways, for those guys to go all through top 20, I think would be awesome. I think that would be very cool for the University of Texas. Of course, Matthew Golden has already it's been reported that he will be up in Green Bay for the draft itself. So hopefully, and again, right now the expectation is that you'll get to see him walk across the stage Thursday night, go shake the hand of Roger Goodell, put on the cap, look all dapper. It's going to be cool. And we've talked about it in previous years, right? Whether it be the combine, whether it be day 1 or day 2 of the NFL draft, right? It's a great marketing opportunity for the University of Texas. And if you got 3 guys going in the first round for the first time in since 1980, 81, 80, it's 80. In that range. That's huge for Texas. And no more are we hearing about the lack of development or 5 stars go there and they don't ever pan out. Look, Texas is putting guys in the league and they're winning big-time football games. So it's huge for Texas. It's huge for the program and what's to come, right? You have a number 1 class right now. How can you continue to stack that to where this Final Four finish turns into national championship finish, national championship win? Take that next step. They're doing the right things right now.
Yeah, and Rod, you said it, I think one of the previous Tuesday nights we discussed this, but to the marketing side, to have a 5-star walk-in left tackle starter go off the board in the first 20, a transfer who comes in and plays 1 year and goes off the board in the top 20, who really wasn't on anybody's radar a year ago at this time, and then to have a 5th-year player like Jahdae Barron who, switched positions, came back, did the whole development deal. I mean, that's marketing 101, that you're developing at all levels. You're developing the 5-star kid that's a walk-in stud. You're developing a transfer kid in back-to-back years, a wide receiver, and you're developing a guy that just got better and better and better as he developed in your program.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, every guy that's been recruited wants to go to the NFL. So this is the ultimate selling point, the ultimate sales pitch. Is that you'll get multiple guys drafted, 13 guys drafted, whatever they'll get drafted. And yeah, I mean, the path for everybody is going to be different. The trajectory of every player is a little bit different, but ultimately every player wants to end up in the same place, which is the league. And if you can show them, hey, no matter what your path is, if you come to Texas, we'll get you there. Like we're your best shot to make it to the league. And right now, there's no doubt, man. They're showing that over and over again. That Sark and his staff, that's one thing they can do, is develop talent. And like you said, it's at all levels, all the different examples they're given. So it's almost a celebration every draft now. It wasn't like that for Longhorn Nation, but now it's a celebration. That whole 4-day weekend, Thursday through Sunday, you got to watch if you're a Longhorn fan.
Yep, no question about it. And not just 3 in the first round, but 3 in the first 18, according to Mel Kiper, draft expert, which would tell you, when you talk to NFL insiders and tell NFL personnel folks, there's 32 first-round picks. There's probably only about 20, maybe less than that, first-round grades on players, guys who actually have a grade of a first-round pick. And that would tell you the Longhorns have 3 actual first-round graded guys at corner, receiver, and tackle, which are cornerstone positions in the NFL. You have to have a left tackle. You have to have a wide receiver that can beat man coverage and score touchdowns, and then a cover corner like Jahdae Barron. To have those 3 positions in the top 18 is pretty damn impressive for Texas. One other that Mel Kiper has, no Quinn Ewers in the second round, but and no Cam Williams or Alfred Collins for Mel Kiper, but Isaiah Bond to the Carolina Panthers with pick 57, according to Mel Kiper, of the second round, which would be another Longhorn to Carolina on the heels of Jonathan Brooks and JT Sanders last year to the Panthers. So obviously the draft is in 2 weeks, and that'll lead right into Fan Fest and that whole weekend, April 24th, 5th, and 6th. There'll also be a baseball series with Texas A&M that weekend, which is a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to that. You've got Masters and whatnot this weekend, and Longhorn baseball at Kentucky. Also have Easter the following weekend, and then the draft coming up beyond that. So a lot to look forward to in that Fan Fest. And what you say, CJ, there's going to be some type of pretty intense spring scrimmage on Saturday, and then I'm sure a big recruiting weekend as well, with some of the top recruits coming in to be a part of that.
Yeah, 30, 40 recruits coming to campus this weekend. Jerry and I have a running list going on TexasFootball.com as well. So Be sure to check out the recruiting breakdown from earlier today if you haven't caught it already, but some big names coming in on the defensive line, some wide receivers and cornerbacks there. So we'll be looking forward to it. We'll be out there Saturday as well, chasing down any intel from the scrimmage or practice, whatever they got going on for the team, but also recruiting that's going on the 40 acres.
All right, keep it locked in right here on the On Texas Football Channel, YouTube, and all the digital platforms and the website. It's 11-2 at last check over at Dishfall Field, Texas, up on Houston Christian. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Outstanding. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Steve Sarkisian. Happy to he and L'Oreal and the new baby and all that goes on. Rods knows what that's all about right now. And, Sark's 50 now. He's got a new baby at home. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Good luck to him, because I'm about that age too. It's the same. Couldn't imagine having an infant, but that's the way the world works, I guess. But guys, awesome stuff, and thank you to all the questions and chats and conversation. We appreciate you guys, and we'll do it again tomorrow. Coffee and football at 8:00 or just after tomorrow morning. Rod and CJ, thanks.
Thank you, E. Welcome.